Elite Facts presents
7 important Game of Thrones universe characters not in the show. If you've clicked on this video, then you're probably well aware of how big of a hit Game of Thrones has been for HBO. You're also probably aware that the series is based off of George R.R. Martin's book series, A Song of Ice and Fire, and you no doubt know that when adapting a book to the screen, things can change and characters can be omitted. The TV series has, of course, left out some interesting and important characters from the books that we feel deserve some recognition. If you're familiar with the books, then the characters on this list should at least refresh your memory. If you're only familiar with the show, then this will hopefully enlighten you, giving you greater insight into the world of the show. It should go without saying, but there are both book and show spoilers ahead. You've been warned. 7. Quentin Martell. The Martells, they are the major house in the Kingdom of Dorne, and they play a very important role in the books. In the show, their role might be about to get a lot bigger when Season 7 kicks off, but for the most part, their role so far has been woefully small and taken a totally different path compared to the books. The show gave us the tragedy of Prince Oberyn, and but a terribly brief glimpse of Prince Doran Martell and his son Trystane. And then the show's writers decided to do away with several books worth of plotting and character development and killed them off. Prince Doran had an older son called Quentin, and he was a man on a mission. Short, stocky, and not especially handsome, Quentin is sent on a mission by Doran to Meereen to win the heart of Daenerys and become a dragon rider. His quest is one of disguises, and he and his loyal followers, Sir Garrus and Sir Archibald, make their way across the sea to Meereen. Their journey sees them fight off pirates and pose as sellsword mercenaries, before eventually tricking their way into Dany's court. Quentin gets to Meereen and explains to Dany that his father and uncle conceived of a secret pact that would have seen Dany's brother, Viserys, marry Quentin's sister, Arianne, and then, with Viserys dead, offers to marry Dany instead. But Daenerys rejects him, and undeterred, Quentin attempts to steal one of her dragons after Dany goes missing on her dragon, Drogon. Quentin and the wind-blown mercenaries he convinced to aid him break into the dungeon where the dragons are kept to steal one. But Quentin is fatally burned by the dragon Rhaegal. He later dies while being treated for his wounds and is so badly burned as to be unrecognizable. This, however, leads to some speculation about the circumstances of his death, with fan theories suggesting that Quentin actually made it out alive, with his cunning friends putting another fatally burned person in his place. Some fans suggest that Quentin is unknowingly playing a part in his father's master plan, the likes of which would drive the conspiracy theorists of Westeros wild. 6. Marwan. Way back in Season 1, you'll recall Mirri Maz Duur, the healer and witch who Daenerys saves from the Dothraki, only to supposedly betray Dany with blood magic, leading to the death of her unborn son and the comatose state of her husband. In the books, it's explained that Mirri is so well taught in the art of healing and can speak the common tongue because of time she spent studying under the Archmeister Marwan. Given Samwell Tarly arrived at the Citadel at the end of Season 6, Marwan may be about to make an appearance in the show, and if what is known about him from the books is anything to go by, this could be a pretty big deal. Marwan is an Archmeister of the Citadel, specializing in magic. Meisters, as you no doubt know from the show, are the wise men who study the world and advise lords based on their knowledge, and as hinted at in the show, are actually rather dismissive of magic. Marwan, however, is the one exception, and his knowledge of magic and his questionable lifestyle have earned him a bit of a reputation amongst the Meisters. Theories about Marwan suggest that he may have been using a magical artifact called a glass candle to contact Daenerys in her dreams, with the assistance of Sorella Sand, one of Prince Oberyn's bastard daughters not featured on the show. In the books, Marwan seems to be off to advise Dany on dragons and magic as her Meister, after hearing of the goings-on north of the Wall from Sam. 5. Vargo Hoat. Back in Season 3, a particularly spiteful character called Locke was introduced. He cut off Jaime Lannister's sword hand and later died trying to kill Jon Snow and Bran Stark. Locke is actually a condensed and considerably nicer version of the book character Vargo Hoat, the leader of a sellsword company called the Brave Companions from Esso. Vargo is a particularly sadistic man with a penchant for dismemberment. Nicknamed the Goat because of his banner and stylized helmet, he speaks with a slobbering lisp due to a swollen tongue, and he stands out as a character riding a horse-zebra hybrid called a Zorse and wearing a necklace of coins from around the world. He's hired by Tywin Lannister to cause havoc in the Riverlands, sending his company out to pillage and cause immense suffering on its people in an effort to draw Robb Stark into battle. When Tywin leaves Castle Harrenhal to fight Robb, Vargo is left in charge with Armory Lorch. The two don't get along, and Vargo betrays the castle to Roose Bolton and has Armory thrown in a bear pit. Roose gifts Vargo the castle, but being a foreigner, he's not aware that Harrenhal is a cursed gift, nor is he aware of what befalls those who betray Tywin Lannister. During this time, Vargo tries to force himself on Brienne of Tarth, who was having none of it, and bites his ear off, but she's spared his wrath due to the intervention of Jaime Lannister. Harrenhal is eventually retaken by the head-smashing giant Sir Gregor the Mountain Clegane, who gives Vargo a taste of his own foul-flavored medicine. The Mountain has Vargo slowly dismembered and then serves the chopped-up pieces to his prisoners, including the dying Vargo himself, as roast goat. 4. Patchface. For those of you who only follow the show, cast your mind back to Shireen Baratheon, if your hearts can still handle it. She was Stannis Baratheon's grayscale-marked adorable daughter, who was a bundle of innocence and hope, before Weiss and Benioff rewrote Stannis into Macbeth, and she, along with the Baratheon plotline, went up in flames. Some of you will be happy to know that Shireen is still alive in the books, for the time being, and that she even has some cheerful company in the form of the jester Patchface. Or maybe you won't, as there's something at least a little bit sinister about Patchface. His face is tattooed in a patchwork of red and green, and he was a slave in the city of Volantis. Bought from slavery by Steffon Baratheon, Stannis' father, because of his wit, juggling, and performances of magic, Patchface was the only survivor of the shipwreck that killed Steffon and all on board. When he was rescued from the wreck, he was clammy, cold, and appeared to be dead. Since then, he hasn't been 100%, twitching, walking funny, and talking what appears to be oddly prophetic rhymes. One of his rhymes almost certainly predicts the Red Wedding, and the rest have book fans speculating and guessing as best they can.
3.
Jean Westerling. In the show, Robb Stark married the battlefield nurse and low-key noblewoman Talisa Maegor, and it was very much a romantic affair that led to the marriage and, consequently, the Red Wedding. Una Chaplin, who plays Talisa, was originally billed as playing a character called Jean, who has been confirmed by the showrunners and G.R.R. Martin himself as having been the character Jean Westerling from the books. Rewrites saw Una's character become the almost entirely new Talisa on Martin's advice. Jane Westerling in the books was Robb Stark's wife, as Talisa was on the shows, but with some very important differences. For one, Jean Westerling is still alive in the books, and at last check was being used as a Lannister bargaining chip at the siege of Riverrun. The circumstances of the marriage to Robb are also quite different. Robb is wounded laying siege to the Westerling castle, the Crag, but is still victorious. The Westerlings are quick to embrace their conquerors as friends, sending their eldest daughter, Jean, to nurse Robb. Robb then learns of the death of his younger brothers at the hands of Theon Greyjoy, and overcome with grief, finds comfort in the young Jane. Having deflowered the maiden Jean, Robb decides to do the honorable thing and marry her, and the two fall in love. Robb, not wanting to insult the Frys whose marriage pact he broke, does not take her with him to the wedding at the Twins, so she doesn't die at the Red Wedding, leaving many book readers to wonder what will become of her in future books. It's also implied that she's descended from Maggie the Frog, crone who appears briefly in the show, revealing a damning prophecy to a young Cersei Lannister.
2.
Strong Belwas. In the books, Daenerys Targaryen has a much larger and much more colorful entourage than she does in the show. The most colorful member of said entourage is perhaps Strong Belwas, a former slave and pit fighter, and now a bodyguard and champion of Dany's. Belwas is described as being a colossus of a man, a tanned, bald, and scar-covered eunuch. In battle, he always lets his opponent get at least one cut on him before he defeats them, keeping the scars as a tally of those he has slain. In the books, he initially serves as part of a decoy to get the Ben Kenobi-like Sir Barristan Selmy to Dany, with Selmy posing as Belwas's squire. The Battle of Champions at the Gates of Marine in the show is a quick affair thanks to Dany's champion, Dario. In the books, it's strong Belwas who is Dany's champion, and he makes it a nastier ordeal. After enduring an hour of taunting by the Myronese champion and its people, Dany sends the former slave Belwas forward as her champion, partially as an insult to the slave-trading city. Belwas avoids the charges of the opposing champion several times before allowing his opponent to cut on him. Belwas then beheads his opponent with a single blow. In the show, the victorious Dario urinates in the general direction of the city to add insult to injury. In the show, the victorious Belwas takes this a step further, defecating in the city's general direction. 1. Arianne Martell. That's right, another Martell. We started with Quentin and now we're ending with his older sister, Arianne. Arianne Martell is proof of just how much better the Dorne plotline in the show could have been had the showrunners opted to stay closer to the books. Her father, Prince Doran, might as well be on this list too for similar reasons, since it's almost like he wasn't in the show at all. Show Dorne bitterness aside, Arianne Martell is a very important character in the books in her own right, and puts a whole new twist on the princess in the tower trope. Arianne was always a daddy's girl until, when she was 14 years old, she discovered a letter that told how her father wanted Quentin as his heir to Dorne. This, of course, upset her, as in Dorne, gender is not an issue for inheritance. Feeling slighted by her father, she became a bit of a rebel, even more so because her father would have little reaction to her wild behavior and presented her to elderly suitors. It's only later that she finds her father did not intend her to be his heir because he had instead intended to make her the queen of all 7 kingdoms, with a secret marriage pact to Viserys Targaryen. When Cersei's daughter, Myrcella, ends up a ward in Dorne while Arianne is still in the dark about her father's intentions, partially as an act of rebellion and partially to avenge her uncle Oberyn, she embarks on a daring plan. Arianne effectively kidnaps Myrcella with the intention of crowning her the queen of the 7 kingdoms based on Dornish law. She attempts this with the help of Myrcella's bodyguard, Arias Oakheart, who Arianne has seduced and is having an affair with. The closest the show came to Arianne Martell was turning Ilaria Sand into a half-baked vengeance machine, whereas Arianne is much more the scheming seductress with great ambition and a resilient, adaptable personality. Arianne Martell and her involvement with her father's plotting, as well as her own, make the Dorne plotline in the books all the more enticing.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.